Well, it is 2:02, and do you want to do introductions first, or?
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and introduce who Midwest Ag Solutions is and what we're trying to do and where we want to see the company go.
Well, I did not prep ahead of time for all of those answers, but I am Danny now with Midwest Ag Solutions. Those of you who don't know my story, I was 60 days ago, I was an English teacher, though I've always been a farm kid and I love learning, so which I'm excited about this session with Mark. I'm passionate about learning and learning more about the ZymeCo products and knowing what they can do for our growers. As far as Midwest Ag Solutions, we're just here to help good people get some really great products, products that we believe in, that we want to stand by. And I'm super excited about ZymeCo and everything they have to offer. Obviously, Mark will talk about that. But yeah, I'm just North Central Kansas, though we're kind of just regionally located, Southern Nebraska, Central Nebraska, North Central Kansas. And I am married to the other guy on this video, so he can talk about himself now for you get 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'm the one that drug her into the whole agriculture scene. So, yeah, I'm Joel Mahan. I'm the Nano Yield Regional Sales Manager for Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, and Oklahoma. The reason I'm on the call is I'm representing Nano Yield because of the NLT products that are inside of the Fulvazyme and Tilzyme products. Mark and I have chewed the same dirt, if you will, at Nano Yield. He used to work for Nano Yield and broke out on his own with this company called ZymeCo, and we're glad to have him on board. So, Mark, take it away.
Good. Well, thank you, Danny and Joel, for the time and for setting up the call. So happy to be with you guys. So, as Joel mentioned, so I'm Mark Slavens. I formerly was at Nano Yield. I was CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and then President, and oversaw the whole operation. And then about 6 months ago, I left to take on this new venture to run this new company called ZymeCo. And we'll talk through ZymeCo and what we are as a technology company and how I think our technologies will really be additive to the portfolio and help solve a lot of the needs for farmers and growers. But at the core of it, we're an enzyme technology company. So we focus on biologicals and making biological solutions that are extremely effective and easy to use. And we'll talk through how those work. But I would just say anytime during this call, if you have questions, raise your hand or just jump in, interrupt me at any time and ask away, and we'll try to get those answered for you. We are recording the call, so if you want to get a copy of this and share with anybody from your team, we'll make that available as well. Just real high level, this is the core of the team. So we have a really strong technology team. So Tad and Michael, they are the founders. They started the company about 4 years ago. Really smart protein engineers and enzyme scientists. They pulled me in to help run it and turn it into a real business that we can generate some sales and get things going. And then we have a dedicated focus team on the turf side as well that really leans in there and works with golf courses and athletic fields, lawn care operators as well. That's led by Phil Dwyer. Phil worked with us at Nano as well, running the turf side there. And he and I worked together for about 11 years at Scott's Miracle-Gro as well. We were both on the R&D side of that business. And then Jenny Phillips is our director of marketing, and she does a fantastic job for us with a lot of our creative. And that's a part of what is important to talk about as well is she has a great tool box she's created, and she provides a lot of resources to distributors and dealers to help them utilize our technologies and help sell product as necessary. So real high level, what we do, as I mentioned, is we focus on primarily enzyme technologies or byproducts of enzyme technologies. And there's lots of different enzymes, and enzymes are a word that are thrown around along with other microbial or natural products or technologies. And, at a real high level, all enzymes are, to keep it simple, they're proteins. And they're proteins that help with chemical reactions. So they help actually speed up or make chemical reactions occur in a more simple form. So they actually just reduce the energy required for, you know, something to happen in it from a chemical nature. So in simple terms, they will go in, they will catalyze a reaction, help something occur that may not have occurred without the presence of those enzymes. They're inside all living cells, both human and plant. They're very prevalent. And a lot of times when we're applying microbials, biological type products in agriculture, which have become more and more prominent, we're trying to get those biologicals to actually produce enzymes to help break down things or turn organic material back into nutrients. And so keep that in mind, is that we can use microbes to create enzymes, or take the approach which we are doing, is where we are actually fermenting enzymes at a production scale and just applying those directly to the farm. So we're basically bypassing the natural process that would have to happen on the farm, which, you know, can be tricky to happen, and just applying these technologies directly. The second thing I like to always focus on with enzymes is that they're non-living. And I think that's really important, because if you've worked with biologicals in the past, shelf stability and just challenges with living organisms, I think everybody's dealt with that, where it can be tough, because you're trying to make sure that they're stable, they continue to perform, they're alive when you apply them, so they'll do what you need them to do. Enzymes, again, as long as you keep them under 140 degrees Fahrenheit, they will stay stable and they will continue to work. If they freeze, they just stop working while they're frozen, and as they thaw out, they start working again. So they're really nice. So if you apply them on stubble in the late fall after corn harvest and it gets cold, they'll still be there and they'll still continue to work until they freeze. And then once spring comes around and things wake back up, they'll start working again. So very stable, non-living, and extremely bioavailable, which is really important to think about. And as we talk today, we'll talk about primarily one enzyme, which we call lactase. That's the main enzyme that we focus on, and I'll talk through that specifically. But you've probably heard of cellulase, which is a pretty common enzyme that's in some products. We have it in our product as well, but it's a product that primarily targets cellulose, and cellulose is a part of plant tissue, but it's a really easy to break down material that bacteria and microbes can break down usually pretty easily on their own. Lactase, which targets lignin, that's the one that's the workhorse that targets the really hard to break down material. So, and these enzymes help facilitate the breakdown of these materials, return them back to their basic nutrients, which are water, humus, and crop nutrients, that, phosphorus, potassium, things that are really important for crop production. As I mentioned, lactase is the primary enzyme we'll talk about. So when we talk about Tilzyme here in just a minute, we're going to be talking about utilizing the lactase enzyme. It is specific at facilitating the breakdown of lignin, which lignin, the best way to think about lignin is if you have all the goodies in plants, all the organic material, lignin is like the wrapper. And so if you're eating a Snickers bar and you want to get to that Snickers bar, you have to open up the wrapper first before you can get to the good material that's available to the microbes and available to the crop. And so until you take off that wrapper, which is the lignin, all that stuff inside is not available. And so we design lactase to target that wrapper, that really hard to break down organic material called lignin, which then as that breaks down, that makes available the cellulose, hemicellulose, and other nutrients that become very easy to digest by microbes. So it catalyzes that lignin and converts it back to oxygen, water, nutrients. And so you get that release of that material, which then becomes food for the next crop or for the biology in the soil. So I would say keep that in mind as we talk through this technology. The way we make this material is very unique, and this is part of what is our core competency. It's our production process. And so you can get, as I mentioned, you can get these different enzymes from microbes that are just native in your farm, on your farm, in the soil. They will produce enzymes as they're healthy and they're growing. But the potency of an enzyme depends on what makes the enzyme. And so we make all of our enzymes from fungal strains or mycelium. And the reason that becomes important, if you think about nature's decomposers, think about going into the woods and what do you see breaking down trees and breaking down stumps and really degrading that tough to break down material. It's usually mushrooms. And so mushrooms can create these enzymes in a much more potent form. And so we ferment products in production and use mushrooms to break down those products and create these enzymes. So we go through this, we utilize fungal strains, we use ag substrates like wheat straw and barley straw as the fermentation substrates. We grow the mushrooms on them and we extract those, the enzymes that they produce and turn it into a finished good product like the one you see on the screen here. It's usually got a really nice kind of chocolatey, form. And that's because it's filled with really good enzymes, humic acids, fulvic acids, and other materials from that fermentation process that are just loaded with good material that will really facilitate kind of that biological process happening. And so what that's led to are several products that we've made from those. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about ZymeCo, which is our main product that we launched into the turf market. And the reason I'll spend a little bit of time here is it's a very similar core technology in ZymeCo that we've brought to Tilzyme, which I think for the ag side is much more relevant. But ZymeCo is a product, if you play golf or you have a home lawn, most people are familiar with the term thatch. It's just a layer of dead or dying organic material that's underneath the green tissue between the green grass clippings and the soil. And the thicker that gets, the puffier that gets. It harbors insects, pests. It makes it harder to wet your lawn. So that's a really recalcitrant or hard to break down lignin material. And so our ZymeCo product actively goes in and breaks that down and helps it degrade, turn back into humus, turn back into organic, good for the soil organic material and core nutrients that can be released and feed the microbes. And so we do that through this lactase enzyme. And just to showcase a little bit of how this works, this is in 2023. We did testing across about 8 different golf courses across the US. And most golf courses will go and do core aeration, they'll do dethatching and a lot of mechanical processes to remove thatch. We started working with them and said, hey, let's just spray ZymeCo instead of doing all these different processes. And let's see how much of the organic material of that thatch we can start to reduce. And you can see that we get about a 15%, 16% reduction in thatch or organic matter when we use this. And the reason that number is important is you don't want to get rid of all of that material. Like having a little bit of a layer of thatch is good. But when turf is growing, turf is constantly recycling and creating thatch. And that's a little bit unique to turf. And so you're always fighting something that's growing. It's like cutting your hair. Your hair is always growing, so you got to keep cutting it. Even if you shave it bald, it'll grow back for most people. But thatch is the same way. You could go wipe it down to 0, and over the next couple of weeks, your turf's still growing. It'll grow back some additional thatch because it's just constantly producing that as an organic material. So we constantly are fighting thatch. So this product is a product that we apply on a monthly basis as part of a thatch management project, and it has really good results. And so we have demonstrated time and time again across the U.S. and I'll highlight some of our trials we have going on this year on ZymeCo and Tilzyme, trying to demonstrate this. But this is just a really good example of a multi-year study we did in Colorado, where this gray line here, starting in 2021, we told a golf course to stop maintaining their tees for thatch, just fertilize, just mow. Let's see what happens. And you can see the thatch level, organic matter level, jumped up from about 17% up to above 30%. So it became really puffy. That became more unmanageable than you would want it to be. Right next to it on another tee, we said do the exact same thing. The only difference is spray thatch zyme to maintain your thatch organic matter level. And you can see we are able to maintain that organic matter at about 15%, just showing that a simple spray can keep that organic matter, that thatch accumulation at bay. And then at the end of that study in October, when thatch was really high, we came in and just started treating that area with thatch zyme. And you can see how quickly we started to break down that material and turn it back into good nutrition for that turf, and then also just get it back under control. So that's the mechanism that we're talking about with our enzyme technology in thatch zyme and in tilt zyme. Any questions there from anybody before I jump into tilt zyme and what that is?
Yeah. Hey, Mark, this is Joel. Question. We're used to seeing products in the marketplace, and I'm going to speak specifically to corn stubble breakdown. We're seeing products in the past and currently right now as well that we're spraying bacteria on the acre to start that breakdown process. How does the enzymes react versus the spraying of the bacteria?
Yep. Yeah, great question, Joel. So when you spray a bacteria, first and foremost, you need that bacteria to colonize. So it has to be sprayed, get into the soil, and actively like survive, which that in itself is often a challenge. You have, I mean, per like cubic foot of soil, you have billions upon billions of microbes already there, native in most soils. So you have a lot of biology already present. So spraying another bacteria in and amongst that, you're going to have competition. You got to have good conditions for those to survive. So that's number one. But those bacteria, they have to be able to have a food source, and they have to be able to survive, like sustain themselves. And the ultimate goal of those bacteria is you want them to then start to create those enzymes to start to break down the organic matter. So you spray the enzymes. Let's hope that they establish. A lot of them do, some don't, but let's hope that they establish. They need a nutrient source to start like thriving. So they'll first take nutrients for themselves versus for the crop because they need it to survive. And then if they get nutrition, they'll convert some of that back to the plant available nutrition for the crop, but then they'll produce these enzymes as well. Like I mentioned, Joel, the enzymes that bacteria or microbes produce, they work, but they're less efficacious than fungal derived enzymes at crop, breaking down crop residues. And so all we're doing is, instead of putting down microbes, hoping that they'll produce the enzymes, we're just directly applying those enzymes. And so those enzymes come in contact with that material, whether that's corn stubble, wheat stubble, and they'll start breaking it down essentially instantly from the time they come in contact, because there'll be enough biology in and around those plants that they'll be there to start acting as that catalyst for those reactions to start it happening. So you're going to get a faster response, you're going to have more efficacy, and you're going to have a more stable product that you're putting on the farm.
So basically, at the end of the day, as far as spraying the bacteria style products and spraying the enzyme type products, they're both doing the same job, but the enzymes are being more efficient, and you're basically getting more bang for your buck, so to speak.
Yeah, more bang for your buck, more efficient. So I have it on here. In work we've done, our fungal derived are easily about 5 times more efficacious than bacterial derived enzymes. If you were to go source a lactase enzyme that's bacterial derived versus the potency of our fungal derived, it would take 5 times more bacterial derived enzymes to get the same reaction as we get with our fungal derived. So much more potent. The other piece is bacteria, as temperatures get cool, especially in the fall, as you start to think about stubble, they stop working really fast based on temperatures. So like I mentioned, our enzymes, like bacteria, when it's warm and there's lots of moisture, they will do really well, and that's when they're going to be the most efficacious. But until it freezes, our enzymes keep working. Where microbes, they will slow down to almost nothing well before freezing, because they like that soil temperature, around 50, 55 degrees to really be active. And so that is a big difference too, is non-living, able to function at kind of cooler temperatures and higher temperatures as well.
Now, are there handleability issues between bacteria and enzyme?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a store, as I mentioned, I think there's a lot of different bacterial products out there. I think the newest trend is obviously using the spore forms that are in a cap that then you punch into the solution right before you use it. That's directly because when people were trying to jug bacteria for a long time, they would bloat jugs, they would split jugs because they were respiring and causing problems, or they were just dying in the jug. And so by the time you used them, you didn't see a response. So I think storage stability is a big deal. Like I mentioned, we still want to keep our product under 140 degrees. So in the hot summer months, you need to keep it in the shade in a shed, not in direct sunlight where it could get really, really hot. But and then we always say avoid freezing, just because we don't want anything to freeze in a jug and split a jug. That's the primary reason we don't want it to freeze. If the enzyme freezes, it's going to be fine. Once it thaws out, it'll still be there and still be active. The other piece too is the way we make our enzymes. It's a very unique structure that's actually protected as well. So as you apply it to the surface, enzymes can degrade from sunlight and other things like that. Ours is protected. It's got actually like a wraparound surrounding that protects it like a colloid and keeps it very safe. And that also allows it to be tank mixed with other materials like herbicides or fungicides or surfactants or things like that as well. And it won't degrade the enzyme.
Okay. Little shameless plug here. What about, can you speak to the reasoning why you guys have added nanoliquid technologies to your technology?
Yeah, you bet. So the way Tilzyme works, you go after harvest, and this doesn't have to be directly after harvest. This can be a product that can be applied anytime you want to degrade organic material. So whether you've tilled in stubble and you just got a lot and you want it to still break down faster, in the spring to help release those nutrients in time for kind of critical phases of the next crop production, or you want to do it in the fall, go spray this at a recommended rates of pint per acre. We do give the range of a pint to a quart per acre. Like most things, more is going to give you a better result, but more just gets to be expensive. So a pint per acre seems to be the sweet spot where we get good results, while also still being economic for the farmer. But you go spray that. And the reason we've added nanotechnology to Tilzyme, so as we spray this and those enzymes start working, they're going to start to release, and here, I'll just switch this slide. They start to return these key yield promoting nutrients, and specifically potassium and phosphorus. Those are some big ones, and carbon. As we're releasing those nutrients, we want those to be directly available to the biology in the soil, but we also want to make sure that they're available to the next crop. And so the nanoparticles that are in there, those are there to be mineral sponges to load those nutrients as they get released, so that as that next crop gets planted, you now have the nanomaterial in there to help deliver those nutrients to the crop more efficiently. So that's the reason that these two technologies work really well together. We're breaking down and freeing up those nutrients. We're then going to load those on the nanotechnology so that when your crop starts to grow, you get better uptake, better utilization of that material. And then lastly, I think this is an important part. If you already have a biology or a micro package that you're using that you like as part of your program, our technology does not need to replace that necessarily. It can work in conjunction with your microbes that are there, because again, we're releasing nutrients, making those available to the biology in the soil. Often nutrients need to be broken down further by the biology so into plant available forms. So it's a really nice like complementary product to concurrent biological products, depending on what those are designed to do, and can be integrated into your nano yield programs as well pretty easily.
Okay. I hate to be asking so many questions, but how does this play into manure applications? Would this be a fit or maybe not?
Yeah. So if you're applying straight manure and there's still a lot of straw and other material that's in there, either from it being in bedding, because you can't separate that all the way, or just undigested material in the manure, this would be a product. We haven't done a lot of testing on this, but inside that product, that's all lignin that's in there that still needs to be broken down and converted. So that would be an ideal opportunity to use this as a way to help break down manures even further as well. Good. All right. And so, Joel hit on some different biological products out there. I know there are residue products out on the market. All of these, everybody I talk to, whether you're using a Meristem product, a BW Fusion product, everybody I talk to says you get results. Those products work. I just wanted to highlight a little bit of the difference of these products. So with both the Dakota Bio, the excavator, residue release type products, they're very similar, if not the same product. They all go out at about 12.8 ounces per acre. They're going to primarily be a bacteria product. So you're really just putting out microbes. There'll be a little bit of a fulvic acid component to them. And then in that first one, there is a surfactant package that makes up a good chunk of that solution to help, spread those materials and help things just work better with the surfactant. So that's one class. The other class is the BW Fusion, which I know is pretty prominent in the Dakotas and upper Midwest. So a lot of these are more regional, but it's the same thing. It's a bacterial package of fulvic acid, and it's got a 1% nitrogen component to it as well. And a lot of products do spike their products with the nitrogen, which those nitrogens are designed to feed the microbes and try to stimulate microbial growth. So keep that in mind if you see that nitrogen component. So, and that BW Fusion goes out at about 32 ounces to the acre. Again, what's different is ours just directly applies those enzymes. So the lactase enzyme, cellulase enzyme, and then we have a 1% humic acid and a 1% fulvic acid in there as well. And then our product is full of bacteria as well. We don't claim it on the label, but they are all in the dormant form. So they're not going to be growing in the jug, respiring. But once you put those out into the farm, those dormant spores eventually will inoculate, and you'll start to continue to promote beneficial bacteria in the farm as well with this technology. So just high level, here's just a little bit of the difference between Tilzyme and kind of the more common products on the market focused on residue management. From a trial standpoint, we're going aggressively this year. We have a lot of trials going out as a company. I'll show you a map of all of our different trials, but we're doing work in Indiana and South Dakota, looking at spring corn residue, followed by corn, wheat residue, followed by soybeans. And then in South Dakota, spring corn followed by beans, and then wheat followed by beans. And then in Indiana, we have some farmer trials going on as well. So that was the stuff we got out this spring. We're going to actively work on some fall programs as well on primarily corn stubble. And again, planting corn on beans, and looking at biomass reductions, soil nutrients, but ultimately what we're looking for are yield improvements come the following crop. So keep in mind that's a big focus for what we're looking at. Any questions on Tilzyme before I move past Tilzyme and hit on another technology we have in our portfolio? All right. The other product that we have, and this is a really unique product, is Fulvazyme. And Fulvazyme is actually a byproduct of our fermentation process. And so when we make our enzymes, the final stage of our production is filtering these enzymes so that we can pull the enzymes, separate water, separate the enzymes. And so we have these filters that are different sizes. And so as we run the fermentation through our nanofilters, we actually pull off our fulvic acid. And so what we get is this plant-derived, which is very unique in the market because most fulvic acids are derived from leonardite or coal, along with humic acids. Ours is a plant fermentation-based fulvic acid, so it's a highly oxidizable form of fulvic acid that's very reactive. And the reason that becomes important is a couple things. First, it's nanofiltered. So this is going to be a very, very small molecular size, very small particle that works as a natural chelate. So as you spray this out in the fields, either going out with your liquid starters or going out with your foliar applications, we'll start with your liquid starters. As you apply that, it's going to get into the soil, and those nano-sized molecules will act as natural chelates, and they'll be able to go into the micropore space, find your bound up iron, magnesium, copper, zinc molecules, act like a natural chelate, grab those, and help make those available to your crop. So you get natural chelation, you get an acidifying effect, which becomes important if your soils start to get above kind of that 8 pH, 8.2 pH. So you'll acidify and make nutrients more available as well. But what becomes really important is, because they're nano sized, both on the soil side and the foliar side, as they chelate, they pull all those materials in passively across the membrane through just kind of mass flow. So they help facilitate, because they're small size, a big grab of a bunch of ions, but still they're small enough to just passively flow through the membrane into the plant. And then what we did was we paired this with nanotechnology as well. And the reason we did this is we wanted to also add in a nanoparticle that had a very similar size to our fulvic acid molecule that will load other materials that our fulvic acid won't react as effectively with. So your fulvic acid is going to chelate mostly your metals, like I mentioned, your micronutrients, your irons, coppers, manganese, things like that. And then your nanoparticles can grab a lot of the other materials, nitrogens, phosphorus, things like that can be in a starter solution. But what becomes really important between those two is they have unique modes of action or transport into the plant. The fulvic's going to just come in through your traditional uptake methods of active transport through the ion pump or proton pump, or just through mass flow. And the nanoparticle is going to come in through that process called endocytosis. And so you're maximizing the uptake potential of your nutrients through all pathways by using Fulvazyme as a natural chelating agent to help pull material in. Now, there's also, once the product gets into the plant, there's some natural benefits of fulvic in the plant as well. We don't really need to get into. There's a lot of work going on around fulvics and how they can improve the photosynthetic process and things like that. But what we're really trying to drive is just better uptake, better delivery of liquid nutrients, either from a starter like soil applied or a foliar applied. So this one's really easy to use, highly compatible from a tank mix standpoint, super clean, and everything in there is nano filtered. So no contaminants, no harsh reactants, things like that will bind up any nutrients in solution. Any questions on Fulvazyme?
Mark, I think there's been some discussion around, are these products at some point going to be OMRI certified, or are they at an organic level already without the certification? Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah. So we are working through the OMRI certification process. So we could technically certify these as OMRI. Like, there's nothing that's going to restrict us from certifying these from OMRI. We don't use any traditional chemistries or anything in the process that would restrict us from that. So the fermentation process, as I mentioned, we use mycelium from mushrooms. We use ag products to ferment on, barley straw, wheat straw, oak, things like that, all naturally derived. We grow the enzymes, we extract them naturally. So we don't use any specific chemistries to do that. And then we concentrate them through a filtration process and jug them. So we will essentially go through an OMRI process and just certify all of our products in the future as OMRI, because we can, and why not? Whether you care about that or not, like, I think it's going to be just a nice benefit to have that OMRI certification on all these products. So just high level today, we're extremely active. As I mentioned, our turf side is more mature. We're doing a lot of work on the turf side on batch Zyme and some other products we have there, working across a lot of the key universities, ag universities across the Southeast, Midwest. And so a lot of this data will be very relevant still to the ag side, but we do have some trials specifically to ag going on in South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Indiana this year. And then we're going to continue to expand that to get more regionally relevant data. So next year, our plans are to do more robust testing in the Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado territories, as well as into Iowa. So just to expand. So we know testing is important, and we have plans to do more and more. So. And then just lastly, my last slide is just looking at MSRP for these products and what they typically retail for. So Fulvazyme, we sell in totes or 2x2.5s, and your cost per acre for Fulvazyme is going to range between $2.75 and $3 an acre for those applications. I know a lot, that's at the pint level. We do have recommendations to go between a pint up to a quart, depending on what you can use. So I know a lot of fulvics that are being used today are going out at around 32 ounces to 64 ounces per gallon, so much higher rates. So generally, if you're doing that, you're spending between $8 to $10 an acre. So we usually can come in at a lower cost and still provide the same, if not better, efficacy than a lot of those products at that higher rate. And then Tilzyme, your MSRP is going to be about $15 an acre, which that is going to be right on that edge or the higher end of kind of the residue type products. But again, this is the best product on the market. It's got the highest efficacy. It's going to act the fastest. It's got the widest range of conditions it's going to perform. And so it's going to be a unique differentiator of a product to go out into the residue market on corn residues and wheat residues, and even manures. So it's a really nice technology. So what other questions do you have that I can help answer while we have some time? And if we don't have any too, feel free to follow up with Danny or Joel too, and they can feed them to me and I can get them back if there are some.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, what about a little bit of you covered it kind of slightly earlier. What about a little bit of nitrogen with the Tilzyme, or is that not necessary? What's your thoughts on 32%?
Yeah, to me, it's always a good thing if you put out a little bit of nitrogen with these as well, because that 32%, that's going to just really stimulate microbial growth. And so it's 1 + 1 = 3. It will stimulate the native microbes that are there that allow, as that Tilzyme is really starting to activate and break down that material, that's just going to speed up that process with the native biology as well that's in the soil. And you're gonna likely help the spore forms that we have in there start to establish and start to develop as well in the native soil.
Jeff, that's a very good question. I know you've been out actively putting this in front of some of your growers. What type of feedback are you getting from them? Any pushback? Any questions that you feel like need to be answered by Mark?
No, so far the people I've got it in front of recently they're all interested. They're all looking for something that's more consistent, something that works better, and just gets better results. So a lot of positive feedback already. So we're going to get, I think, lots of looks at this going into this fall.
Great. And I'll just say we're still getting data that's coming in, Jeff. So the South Dakota data, what we did there was we measured. So this is all on spring applied, or so we spring corn stubble. So it wasn't applied in the fall. We waited. We did this in the spring, and after 30 days and after 60 days, we raked the biomass, weighed it so we could measure the difference. And there was over a 10% reduction in biomass when we got to that 16-ounce rate of Tilzyme. So what that's telling you is, over 10% of that material like physically broke down and released into the soil, which is just loaded with good nutrition. What we need, ultimately that's all good. We're waiting to see yield and like how that affects emergence, how that affects, we want to see the impact on bushels per acre, so that's what most people will care about. And then of course, like planters too, as planters are getting faster and wider, and we want less skips, less clogging, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be a big part too of just softening that material as you apply it. So in the spring when you go plant, it's easier to just work.
That brings up a good question, Mark. I mean, what if, scenario wise, what if, say, a producer was not able to get this product out in the fall? Could they still get it out in the spring and see significant changes? I think you've already addressed that, but I mean, it's just that scenario that's running through my head is, can we push the envelope and save that pass till spring if the grower wants to?
Yeah. And so I think the spring application is actually going to be a really important application for a couple of reasons. So the fall timing is a little bit tough for some farmers or growers because they've usually put away the sprayer for the year at the time they run the combine. And so to get that back out to do that residue application, and they haven't gotten paid for the crop yet. So, budgets get tight. So I have a lot of folks, and these are guys mostly in the Kentucky, Carolinas area. They're going to plan to use Tilzyme with their burn down. So first application, they're going to use it. So they're already going out and applying their pre-emergence and burn downs. And so they're going to pair it with that. So they get kind of a 2-for-1 from a labor standpoint. And because the activity on this is fast, they will get they're excited because they'll still get release of nutrients and start to get the benefit of that as the crop's still getting into like V4, V5 phase. And so that's how a lot of guys are approaching it, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go out and do another pass in the fall when I don't normally do that. So absolutely, spring applications are still a great time to apply these. I think that you guys are, tend to be a little bit drier. I think as you get into the I states, they can get pretty muddy in the spring. So they just can't get out and work until it's time to fire up the planter. So that's just the difference. It depends on where you live and if you can actually get out in the fields in the spring or not.
It's an advantage of living in a drought state, if there is one.
Yeah, that's right. Good. Anything else? All right. Well, I'll stop sharing the presentation and, turn it over to Danny and Joel for anything else if you want to wrap up. But
No, I just want to say thank you. That was awesome. I learned so much. I think I took 4.5 pages of notes. So there you go. I'm excited for all of these products and just some great questions on there too. So I want to thank everybody for coming. And again, if you want a video of this, even if you were on the call, I will be happy to share that. We'll pass that out and get that shared to everyone. Joel?
Yeah, I appreciate everybody for coming in on the call. I hope you learned a lot. I hope it sparks some conversation between you and your dealers. You know, you have a great relationship with your customers and dealers, and you know that's from what Danny tells me. That's where this company, Midwest Ag Solutions, wants to go, is bring products like Tilzyme and Fulvazyme to the market along with the Nano Yield products. So kudos to them for pushing the needle on this.
good.
Right.
Well, thank you, Joel and Danny. Appreciate the opportunity to get in front of your customers. So
Yep.
really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks everybody for coming in on the call, and give us a holler if you need more information.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.